Hey, Bruce Naylor here, the Boomer Consumer. Thanks so much for watching. I always appreciate it if you leave a thumbs up for my videos, or if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Today's video is my review of the Laiv Harmony Micro DAC. And now, Laiv reached out to me several months ago, and I apologize to them for taking so long. I've been dealing with some health stuff, as many of my regular viewers know. But they asked me if I'd be willing to review this DAC. It is a loaner. I'm not being paid to review it. No one's looking at the video before I'm posting it to YouTube. So there you go. And I have no affiliate links for it as well. But this is a sweet sounding DAC. I'll just cut to the chase, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more depth. I'm going to set this down. You know, Live Audio, I didn't really know a lot about them. I've heard of them. I've heard some good things, especially about their Harmony DAC and the resistor ladder network that they use. Very precise resistors built into it. And apparently they've been able to take some of the parts from that particularly that resistor ladder network, and put it into a more affordable DAC, because the Harmony sells for around $2,700, which is big money for a lot of people. In fact, it's probably out of the budget for a lot of people. But if you're looking for an R2R DAC for around $1,000, then this is going to be one of the top contenders. I'm telling you that. You know, I ask myself, who would benefit from this DAC? Well, of course, anybody interested in an R2R DAC would be interested in it. If somebody is looking for a smaller device to put into their system, this would be something to consider. If you're trying to do a desktop system, understand this is a pure DAC. There's no preamp function, there's no headphone function, there's no RCA outputs on this. So whatever you do, you're going to have an amplifier or preamplifier that accepts balanced inputs on here. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for, like I said, desktop system, a bookshelf system, or if you just want to include it in your main rig, you're not going to go wrong. It sounds fantastic, as I think I said earlier. So let's talk a little bit about the unboxing experience of the Laiv Micro DAC. First, you get some really premium packaging on here. And there's a thank you card that offers you a free 1-year extended warranty. Next, there is the Micro DAC, which I got to tell you, I was surprised how chunky this whole thing is, but it's a solid piece of aluminum block that it's made out of. Of course, it's going to have some heft to it. And I love the gorgeous design. I think it's a beautiful piece of gear. I wouldn't call it audio jewelry per se, but maybe you could. I don't know. There's an accessory box, and then in that you get different power connectors. What was missing was a USB type B cable, in case you wanted to connect it to your computer. So you'd have to get your own cable for that. Now, there's a lot of features going on inside the Laiv Micro DAC. I'm just going to call it the Micro DAC for our purposes going forward. There's a lot of features to this thing, right? You get the R2R architecture that Laiv is well known for. You get 4 digital inputs. You get a signal-to-noise ratio of around 120 dB. USB input up to 768 kilohertz. You have coaxial and optical inputs, and those get you up to 192 kilohertz, I think 24-bit. There's also DSD64 with that. And then finally, there's I2S on top of that, USB input up to 768 kilohertz. So you got 4 different digital inputs on this thing. Unfortunately, it only has balanced outputs. There is no RCA outputs. And of course, I don't know if I mentioned this, but it does have the I2S connection on there, as well as your 15-volt 2-amp power supply. There's also galvanic isolation, and essentially what that does is it keeps power separate from the various electrical components in here, and uses other technologies to relay data and power to the other components rather than a direct electronic connection. And that helps reduce noise in the system. It also uses the Intel, got down here, Cyclone FPGA chipset. So that comes with it. It's got a lot of features for the money. And of course they had to trim back some of the stuff that comes with the Harmony. We'll talk about all that in a little bit. Let's take a look at the back of the DAC. You've got balanced outputs on there, which is very, very nice. You also have your I2S connection, a coaxial input, you have your optical input, and USB as well as power. Let's take a tour of the front of the µDac. And on the front, you've got this little gold button up here. That's the power on and off. And also, it will put it into sleep mode as well as turn off the display. Of course, the display itself, and there's a little LED in there that's white if it's powered up, red if it's in standby mode. And I did want to mention that it does get a little bit warm. You have a dot matrix type display on here. It's nice and large and bright. You can adjust that bright to medium or dim, but it's good and bright, and you can see it across the room. I'm iffy on the dot matrix menu, but that's okay. That's a personal taste type of thing. Two buttons on the front. The bottom one is a enter and select button, and the top one is going to be menus and return. We're going to go over the menus here in a minute. And then you have this really nice knob on there. It's nice, clicky, D10s, metal. Just great knob feel on this, and that's used to make selections in the menu or change the particular input that you're using. That's what's on the front. Now, looking at the menus on the µDac, your first selection is going to be between non-oversampling and oversampling, then to the phase, then remote, then the display settings for brightness and so forth, then the I2S connection, then about the unit, the firmware, and then there's a reset. I think this is a very simple to use menu system. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to set up and use the µDac. Build quality, and that's real important. This is like a solid block of aluminum this thing is made out of. Got gold plating on the back of the inputs or on the coax as well as on the balance connections. It's a very solid feeling. The knob is great on here. It weighs about 1.5 pounds, measures approximately 6.5 inches across by about 3.25 in depth, about 2 inches in height. On the back, or on the bottom rather, you have these nice little legs on here, so with a little bit of rubber so it won't scoot around on your desktop. That's pretty cool. Let's talk about the sound of this DAC. Now, I'm a believer that DAC should be as transparent as possible and get out of your way, but there's something special in my mind about a well-done R2R DAC. I think the sound is generally a little bit warmer with them. They don't always measure as well as, say, Delta Sigma DACs, but you really get these for that warmth, for that mapley, sugary type of sound. And that's an area that this does not disappoint. But I gotta tell you, the amount of detail in the music that I heard through this DAC was pretty doggone good. As far as the sound quality goes, let's talk about the gear that I used to test. Obviously the DAC. Then I'm listening to CDs with the SMSL PL100, and then that's being fed into the HiFi Man Prelude headphone amp. And then I listen on the HiFi Man HE1000 planar magnetic headphones. And that's kind of my listening and test environment as of today. As far as the music selection, right here, this is Patricia Barber's Nightclub. I think it was recorded in the year 2000. And what she wanted to do in this album was give you that feel of being in a nightclub kind of later in the evening, when the jazz musicians are really doing their thing. And I just thought this was an amazing album. The track Blackbird on here, the bass, the strike of the piano keys, pristine vocals. It's a very soothing album, but there is some upbeat to it. The sound stage was really good, and because, when you're using headphones, you really want that image kind of centered in the middle of your head. You don't want to be able to tell things left and right. You want it all to be the center. That's exactly what's happening here. The imaging, placing those instruments on that sound stage was on point. The bass was solid, impactful, but controlled. Vocals, buttery. That's, I guess, the best way I can explain. They were a little warm. So they are north of neutral, but You expect that with an R2R a little bit. And then the highs were clear, detailed, and bright, but not fatiguing. And that's what you want. You want to be able to put on your headphones and put it on your rig and listen for hours without going, man, I just feel tired. No, you don't get any of that with this DAC. I really felt listening to the µDac through the headphone amplifier, through the headphones, that I felt like I was in a live space. And I think that is the ultimate compliment to this system and to this DAC. Hey, it's almost summer. So what would be more appropriate than to listen to Summer Breeze from Seals and Croft, the 4th studio album recorded, I believe, in 1972. This is a very chill album, especially Hummingbird. What a fantastic song. I think most of, at least probably 90% of us boomers out there has heard Hummingbird. And just nice, Seals and Crofts, their harmonies are just fantastic. And believe me, it was not wasted using this DAC and this headphone amplifier combination. It was not wasted at all. Sounded amazing on here. Again, great soundstage, imaging, everything's on point on this machine. And it's a little bit warmer sounding than, say, my D70 Pro from Topping. It sounded, I have a also the HiFi Man Serenade R2R DAC, and I thought this sounded just maybe slightly warmer, a little richer, a little bit more fuller, as well as I think the detail is at least one notch above. And believe me, I think they sell for about the same price. Now, let's wrap up this video with the pros and cons. Pros. I love the excellent packaging and just design and just the whole experience of unboxing and the presentation of this. I love the solid aluminum build on here. I love all the 4 different inputs on here. Love having balanced outputs on here. It's very simple to set up and to use. The menu system's simple, brain dead simple on here, and it sounds amazing. And it's around $1,000. What I don't like, number one, there is no preamp mode. I got to thinking, somebody that was on the bubble boy, because $1,000 is a lot of money, and because of its size, they're going to think, well, I could set this on my desktop and hook my computer up to it. Yeah, that's where some compromises were made. Number one, you don't have RCA outputs on here. So, you know, you can't really run necessarily the powered speakers unless they've got balanced inputs. Or even, you know, a small amplifier. You're going to have to make sure that you have something, well, I should say preamplifier, because this is a pure DAC. There is no preamp mode. You know, this is not going to function as a volume control. So just make sure when you're putting a system together using this DAC that you're able to handle that. It has a USB Type B connection on here. Come on, folks. Give it the program. Make everything USB Type C. Seriously? Please use USB Type C. I'm not really a super big fan of the dot matrix type display, but that is simply a personal choice. Nothing to do with how good or bad, you know, it's a personal decision, so I'm not going to say it's a pro or con either way. Final thought is, this is a well-made, warm-sounding R2R DAC, and it should certainly be at the very top of your list to consider if you're in the market for a R2R DAC. You know, if you're looking at the Denafrips of the world and these other guys, take a look at the Laiv Micro DAC, or I should say Laiv Harmony Micro DAC. Bruce Naylor, the Boomer Consumer. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.